Sometimes the cause of death isn't what doctors are trained to find. 20 specialists surrounded him, yet none could stop what was slowly killing the richest man in the room. Machines blinked, charts filled, confidence faded, and still, the answer stood 10 feet away, wearing a janitor's badge. Graham Vale had built empires from code and concrete, but inside the most expensive suite at St. Adelphi Hospital, all his wealth bought was confusion. The hum of ventilators replaced boardroom applause. Outside the glass wall, nurses whispered like witnesses afraid to speak. Every scan came back clean. Every treatment failed faster than the last. Then, near the doorway, someone unseen moved with the quiet rhythm of survival. Clara Moreno, night shift cleaner. Mother of one, degree unfinished, but memory intact. She wasn't paid to think. Only to make rooms disappear behind the scent of disinfectant. But the air in this room was wrong, too sweet, too sharp. A faint metallic echo wrapped inside expensive perfume. Clara paused by the sink, her eyes tracing the billionaire's hands, pale, trembling, nails tinted yellow, skin shimmering like dusted glass. Her breath hitched. She had seen this pattern before. Not here, not now, years ago. In a lab where she dreamed of being a chemist before life turned her into the invisible kind of smart. Her mop slid forward. Her mind raced backward, metallic odor, nerve decline, hair, thinning near the temples. The formula arranged itself in her head like an equation she didn't want to solve. Something's poisoning him. The doctors spoke in languages of prestige, autoimmune, idiopathic, metabolic, words that sounded like walls. Clara spoke none of them, but she understood patterns. She noticed how every night, after visits from the same elegant woman, a black jar appeared on the bedside table. Imported, luxurious, always freshly opened, and always. By morning, Graham Vale was worse. She didn't know how to prove it. Only that the rhythm was too perfect to be coincidence. The scent clung to her gloves even after she washed them. It clung to her thoughts when she tried to sleep. She began writing notes in the margin of her supply log, not dusting reports, but chemical symptoms disguised as housekeeping. Because sometimes expertise doesn't wear a white coat. Sometimes the smartest person in the room is the only one not allowed to speak. That night, as thunder rolled outside and monitors wailed inside, the world's most brilliant doctors prepared to declare defeat, and the woman who mopped their floors finally understood the truth. The killer wasn't in his blood. It was on his skin. Morning arrived, gray and humming. Rain streaked the hospital windows. And the city kept moving, because cities don't pause for miracles they can't see. Inside, St. Adelphi smelled of coffee, latex, and exhaustion. Clara pushed her cart down the hallway, same squeak on the left wheel, same rhythm she'd followed for 2 years. But today, the air felt charged, as if the walls knew a secret. The monitors outside Vale's suite flashed steady green lines that meant nothing without context. The billionaire still drifted between worlds. A new doctor led the morning rounds, Dr. Harlan Pierce, all silver hair and absolute certainty. He spoke with that calm authority that made people agree even when they shouldn't. Liver function dropping, neurological response inconsistent. We're running metabolic panels again. Every nod in the room was polite surrender. Clara wiped the counter, eyes lowered. Her mind counted symptoms, not seconds. Yellow nails, hair loss, tremor, digestive pain. The pattern pulsed in her brain like a heartbeat she couldn't unhear. Then she saw it, the black jar, polished and new, sitting on the nightstand like ritual. The nurse opened it carefully, the scent blooming through the room, that same metallic sweetness, that same invisible trap. Clara's pulse quickened. She turned slightly, watching the nurse massage the balm into Vale's hands, gentle, routine. Every motion looked harmless, but the skin shimmered again under the light. No one noticed except her. They never did. When the doctors left, she lingered, straightening what didn't need straightening. She checked the chart by reflex. Liver enzymes worse. Peripheral neuropathy progressing. Exactly the way poison would look if no one asked the right question. A voice behind her cut through the hum. You missed a spot. It was Conrad Blair, the administrator in a perfect suit, smiling like a warning. Try not to hover during clinical discussions. We value discretion. Yes, sir, she smiled back, the kind of smile that hides defiance. He left, satisfied with hierarchy restored. In the staff corridor, Clara scribbled into her notebook, exposure, dermal, recurrent after balm applied. She underlined it twice. Truth felt heavier when written down. By lunch, exhaustion had seeped into every wall. Doctors argued over test results that didn't agree with each other. Dr. Pierce blamed machines. Dr. Lin, the younger physician, blamed old thinking. Clara listened while cleaning the hallway outside their glass conference room. Through the muffled voices, she caught fragments. Autoimmune. Inconsistent. Impossible. She wanted to shout, "Not impossible! You're just looking in the wrong place." Instead, she kept wiping. When her shift ended, she rode the bus home through rain that turned the streetlights to watercolor. Her son slept by the time she arrived. She sat at the kitchen table, same spiral notebook open, the jar's image burning behind her eyes. She flipped through old college notes, faded pages smelling of dust and ambition. A line from her professor surfaced in pencil. Some poisons whisper, not scream. You have to listen chemically. She gathered what she had, baking soda, foil, vinegar, a glass bowl, and set up an improvised test, hands steady. Heart racing, a drop of the balm residue she'd swabbed on her glove, a soft hiss, a faint discoloration. Not proof, but signal, enough to make belief dangerous. She stared at the tiny stain until her reflection in the bowl blurred. Then she whispered, "It's real." At dawn, she returned to the hospital early, the notebook hidden in her bag. Dr. Lin stood at the nurse's station, dark circles under sharper eyes. Clara waited for an opening. "Doctor," she said quietly, "can I show you something?" Lin hesitated, then nodded toward the break room. Clara laid out her notes. Tidy handwriting, clear patterns, simple chemistry. Lin read silently, one brow rising. "You tested this yourself?" "Yes, home setup." "It reacted," Lin exhaled. "That would explain the neuropathy." She glanced toward the hallway. "Dr. Pierce won't listen." "But I will." "Please," Clara said. "Check his hand cream. I'll order a screen," Lin promised. "If I can get it past him, but hospitals move slower than toxins." That afternoon, Vale's condition collapsed again. Monitors screamed. Alarms cut through chatter. Adrenaline flooded the air. Dr. Pierce shouted orders calling for collation for suspected mercury. Lin tried to interject. "Wait, wrong compound, no time," he barked. Clara pressed against the wall, heart pounding. She saw the nurse grab the same jar, the same routine, as if comfort could fight chemistry. The balm glistened like guilt under bright light. Something inside Clara broke loose. Fear's final shell cracking into resolve. She left the suite, found Lin at the nurse's station entering orders. "They're using it again," Clara said. "You'll lose him," Lin froze. "What did you say?" "The cream. It's the source." Lin met her eyes, searching for madness and finding method instead. "Give me your notes," she said. Within minutes, Lin carried the jar to the lab herself. Protocol bent. Rules fractured, time mattered. Clara waited in a hallway chair. Fingers clasped so tight the knuckles whitened. Every beep from down the corridor echoed like judgment. Then footsteps. Fast, deliberate. Lin appeared, lab report trembling in her hand. She didn't speak at first, only nodded once. "The way people do when language feels too small for truth?" "Positive," she said finally. Thallium. The word hit like thunder. Clara's breath left her body in a rush. She looked down at her palms, ordinary hands that had held a mop, now holding an answer. Lin turned back toward the suite. "Antidote, Prussian blue, stat." Doctors ran. Orders flew. For the first time in weeks, the room had direction. From the hallway window, Clara watched chaos turn into purpose. Monitors leveled, nurses moved with focus. Pierce froze mid-sentence as realization dismantled his certainty. Lynn met his stare. She was right, he said nothing. There was nothing left to say. Security entered minutes later. They questioned who'd brought the bomb. Delivery logs pointed to Jonah Vale, the patient's brother. Motive would come later. Power, inheritance, all the usual expensive reasons. For now, life itself balanced on molecules and mercy. Clara leaned against the wall, dizzy with relief and disbelief. She'd spoken, been heard, and the world had not ended. It had simply changed shape. The hallway felt too quiet for what it carried. Inside the suite, machines beeped a rhythm between life and apology. 20 doctors waited for data. Only one woman already had the answer. Clara stood by the door, clutching her notebook, every heartbeat spelling one word, speak. Dr. Lynn entered first, holding the lab sheet like a verdict. The others looked up, expecting reassurance. They got revolution. It's confirmed, she said. Thallium. The word hit the room like glass breaking. Dr. Pierce froze, lips parting around disbelief. That's impossible. We screened, not for chronic dermal exposure, Lynn cut in. Your tests would never see it. Eyes turned toward Clara, the cleaner, the invisible one. The only person who'd noticed the poison on a billionaire's skin. Pierce's voice cracked. Pride fighting logic. How did you? She watched, Lynn said, while we were busy talking. For a heartbeat, no one breathed. Then the room moved all at once. Orders shouted, antidote prepared, IV primed. Every motion suddenly had purpose. The chaos finally made sense. Clara stepped back against the wall, dizzy with relief. The jar that had gleamed like luxury now sat sealed in an evidence bag, its black surface reflecting regret. Pierce whispered to no one, all that money, and it took her. Lynn adjusted the drip herself. Get him on Prussian blue. Now! The antidote slid into the line, a deep cobalt swirl against clear fluid. Monitors steadied. Vale's pulse climbed, slow. Fragile, alive. A nurse murmured, He's responding. For the first time in weeks, hope had data behind it. Then came security. Dark suits, quick questions. Who brought the bomb? Who signed the deliveries? Every record led to one name, Jonah Vale. Clara watched from the doorway as detectives arrived. No sirens, just gravity. One officer looked at her, puzzled. You the chemist? She almost laughed. Not anymore, he nodded. Could have fooled the poison. They took the evidence, took the brother, took the story away from rumor and into justice. The hallway buzzed with news crews outside and whispered awe inside. But Clara stayed where she always stood, half in shadow, half in duty. Dr. Lynn approached, exhaustion softening her edges. You saved him, she said. Clara shook her head. I saw him. That's all. That's more than the rest of us did. Downstairs, reporters shouted through glass doors. Housekeeper uncovers. Murder plot. Poison in plain sight. Clara heard none of it. She was back to wiping surfaces that no longer scared her. Late evening turned the ward gold. Vale's suite glowed behind tinted glass, the man inside sleeping. Machines quiet for once. Pierce came by, slower than usual. Humility replacing authority. He stopped beside her. Miss Moreno? She looked up. He swallowed the pride that had nearly killed a man. You were right. Clara smiled faintly. I was observant. That's rarer than intelligence, he said, and walked away lighter. At 9 p.m., Lynn handed Clara a small paper cup of water. Drink, she said. You've been standing 12 hours. Clara accepted it with the same care she'd handled evidence. The water tasted like air after a storm. Clean, unexplainable, earned. By midnight, the story had escaped the hospital walls. Headlines flickered across phones and monitors. Invisible woman solves invisible poison. Inside the building, silence held a different meaning now. respect. The next morning, administration called an emergency meeting. Clara sat at the far end. Her gray uniform the only thing not expensive in the room. The chief medical officer spoke first. "We have two outcomes today," she said. "One, our patient lives. Two, we learned that wisdom doesn't require a title." Every eye turned toward Clara. She wanted to vanish. Instead, she met their gaze. "I didn't do it alone," she said. Dr. Lin listened. That's what saved him. Lin's smile was small but proud. Listening is medicine, too. They offered Clara paid leave, counseling, a commendation. She accepted only the leave. "I have a kid who likes breakfast before fame." Outside, the air smelled like beginning. Reporters called her name. Microphones pointed like questions that didn't matter. She kept walking. At home, Diego waited with a cardboard sign. "Welcome back." Hero. He'd misspelled hero as hero. She corrected nothing. They ate reheated pasta, laughter bouncing off chipped walls. When he fell asleep, she opened her notebook one last time. On the final page, she wrote, "They didn't see me, but I saw enough for all of us." Her phone buzzed, a message from Dr. Lin. "He's awake. He asked for you." Clara stared at the screen, heart steady now. She looked toward her sleeping son, toward tomorrow, toward everything that finally made sense. Sometimes miracles aren't loud. They're noticed. She closed the notebook and whispered to the quiet kitchen. "The smartest person in the room is not always the one who's invited to speak." Morning returned to St. Adelphi like a confession. The rain had stopped. The city outside kept breathing. Inside, the hospital finally did the same. For the first time in weeks, the Billionaire's monitor showed a calm, honest rhythm, no alarms, no panic, just life, quiet and improbable. Clara pushed her cart down the corridor, the wheels still squeaking, but now it sounded almost musical. Nurses nodded when she passed, not out of habit, out of recognition. They knew her name now. Inside the VIP suite, sunlight spilled across glass. Graham Vale slept, color returning to skin that had forgotten warmth. Dr. Lin stood by the window, reading numbers that finally meant hope. When she saw Clara, she smiled. "He's stable," she said. "He'll wake soon." Clara stayed at the doorway. "I only cleaned the room." "You saw what no one else could." Lin replied. "That's more than cleaning." A soft knock. Security stepped in. "The suspect's in custody," the officer said. He confessed. "Slow poisoning for inheritance." Lin exhaled, shoulders sinking. Clara just whispered, "I knew it wasn't the medicine failing. It was trust." The officer nodded. "You saved him." Then he left, leaving silence that felt earned. Clara looked at the black jar sealed in evidence tape. Something so small, so elegant, so deadly. She whispered to herself. Evil hides in pretty packaging. Later that day, the hospital's board called an emergency meeting. Everyone important was there. For once, so was she. The chief medical officer stood at the head of the table. "Before we discuss policy," she said, "we need to acknowledge one fact: our patient survived because someone without a title refused to stay silent." Every gaze turned toward the woman in the gray uniform. Clara rose slowly. She didn't make a speech. She just said, "Observation is part of care. Everyone should be allowed to notice." The room stayed still long enough for meaning to settle. After the meeting, Dr. Pierce stopped her in the hallway. The arrogance was gone, replaced by something almost human. "I was wrong," he said. "About the case. About you," Clara smiled. "We all miss spots sometimes, doctor. That's why we double-check." He nodded. "Keep checking. We need more eyes like yours." By evening, journalists crowded outside. Headlines flashed across phones. "Invisible woman saves billionaire from silent poison." "Cleaner's observation exposes murder plot." She didn't read any of them. While cameras waited, Clara finished mopping the corridor, because duty doesn't stop when fame arrives. The next morning, a call came from administration. They offered paid leave, therapy, and a scholarship if she wanted to return to her unfinished chemistry degree. She laughed softly. "I'll think about it. But can we start with fixing that squeaky wheel on my cart?" They did. Days passed. Vale recovered. He asked to meet her. His voice was weak but clear. "You saw what 20 experts couldn't," he said. "I was in the right place at the wrong time," she replied. He smiled faintly. "That's how miracles usually start." Then, unexpectedly, he added, "When I get out, there's a position waiting for you. Research assistant, training funded. You deserve more than a mop and fluorescent lights." Clara looked down at her gloves. They were still the same, but the world looking at them wasn't. Outside his room, Lynn waited. "You'll take it, right?" Clara thought for a moment. "I'll take the classes first. Then I'll earn it properly," Lynn nodded. "That's exactly why you belong there." The hospital changed after that. A new notice appeared on every floor. Shadow notes. "If you see something unusual, report it. Observation saves lives." Underneath, in small print, "Created in honor of Clara Moreno." Her name on paper. Permanent. Proof that invisibility can expire. Weeks later, she walked through the same hallways. But people looked up now. Doctors said, "Good morning." Patients smiled. Reyes, her supervisor, joked, "Don't solve another murder this week." "We're behind on supplies," she laughed. "No promises." At home, life looked the same. Bills, homework, late dinners, but something inside had shifted. Diego, her son, held up a school project, a drawing of his mother in a lab coat instead of a uniform. "Is that what you're going to be?" he asked. "Maybe," she said. "If I study hard enough," he grinned. "Then I'll help. I'm good at science now." She hugged him tight. "You already are." That night, she opened her old notebook. The last page was filled with smudged handwriting and formulas crossed out by tired hands. She turned to a fresh one and wrote, Lesson 1, the world only sees what's loud. Lesson 2, real discovery whispers. Lesson 3, listen anyway. She placed the notebook beside her chemistry textbook, closed the lamp, and let the quiet settle. Weeks later, the university sent an envelope. Inside, admission papers, tuition waiver, and a note, "For the woman who proved science is everywhere." Clara read it twice, smiling through disbelief. She looked around her tiny kitchen, the same table, same light, same life, and realized nothing small stays small forever. The next day, she wore her uniform one last time. Not because she had to, but because she wanted to remember. When she entered the hospital, everyone turned to greet her. Reyes clapped. Lynn hugged her. Pierce nodded. Even the security guard who once warned her smiled. "Big day, doctor," he joked. "Not yet," she said, "but soon." Before leaving, she walked past Vale's room. He was reading, color back in his cheeks. He lifted a hand in thanks. She waved once, then turned toward the elevators. Outside, morning sunlight bounced off the city glass. Every reflection looked sharper. Every shadow looked temporary. She crossed the street, holding her acceptance letter like proof that invisibility has an expiration date. In her pocket, she kept a small fragment of foil from that night, a reminder that truth doesn't always come from power. Sometimes it comes from persistence. As she reached the corner, the bus roared by, its brakes sighing like applause. She stepped on, dropped a coin, and sat by the window. The city passed in flashes, neon, rain puddles, people hurrying toward somewhere important. For the first time, she realized she was one of them. Her reflection in the glass caught the sunlight. Not invisible, not ordinary, just seen.